I'm good. Excuse me. I did a thing. Oh, I made sure all of my Rogue Amoeba audio apps were updated yesterday, and I rebooted my computer yesterday.
Nice.
How are you?
My foot aches a little bit, but I'm good.
Oh, getting into some more strenuous PT or just more of the same as achy?
A little bit of both. It's a little more strenuous on the PT side. Trying to do a little more in general, just testing boundaries and range of motion. So kind of both.
Okay, that's cool. Is Are you seeing a noted? Are you seeing gains, or is it early?
I am seeing improvement still pretty consistently. I mean, it can be minimal, sure. But like I was even thinking about it the other day, at first I couldn't put weight on certain parts of the foot without it being uncomfortable. And that's less of an issue. Like there's only, well, let me back up. The way I was measuring this particular thing was going up and down the stairs, where I would have to like turn my foot to get more of my foot on the stairs, going from downstairs upstairs, because those stairs are narrower or not as deep, and I would have to make sure more of my weight was on the stair than trying to support as much of the weight, like with the heel off the stair kind of thing. So little things like that sometimes are what I notice, and sometimes it's more significant than that. But I am seeing improvement in a fairly continual. Like I wouldn't necessarily say linear progress, but not unexpected progress either. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. It's we like to think of things as linear because it's easy, but most things are not. Most things are not anything. Most things you can pick out a section and be like, that part was linear, that part was asymptotic, that part was flat, that part was decrease. So, I did not mean to be describing the stock market. I noticed your potential topics. I was noticing the first one, of course.
Yeah, I've debated whether I really wanted to talk about anything related or just wait until it was done.
Well, mathematically, there's a chance, but I don't see it happening.
Right.
It's not impossible.
I mean,
the Liverpool is not the New York Mets, so.
And we're at a point where, if I remember correctly, and I'd have to go back and look at the math again, but if I remember correctly, unless, what is it? If you guys lose, then we don't have to worry about it. Like, we don't have to kick a ball. Mathematically, it's at that point done, right? Or maybe we have to have a point still. Either way, but it's...
I'm looking at it right now. There are 5 matches left, and Liverpool has 79 points, and Arsenal has 66 points. So 5 matches is 15 points potential. So Arsenal would have to win all their matches,
and we need 3.
And you would and Liverpool would have to lose all, or losing. Arsenal winning everything and Liverpool losing the last 5 matches guarantees Arsenal first place. If Liverpool lost 4 matches and drew a match, that would also guarantee Arsenal first place.
Yeah, we essentially just need 3 points to finish up mathematically.
You need one more win mathematically. Liverpool has won.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of, like, if you guys lose, then I think we just need to draw.
No, if we lose, that's it. Yeah, no, I think that's it.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, well, yeah, that would make sense, because then there wouldn't be...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arsenal loses 1 match. That clinches it for Liverpool. Liverpool wins 1 match. That clinches.
And you guys play Wednesday, right? I
I
think.
think so.
I think that was what it was because you guys play Wednesday. We don't play again until the weekend. So theoretically, if you
Yeah,
guys
we
were to
play.
lose, then we would win without having to play a game.
Right. And
Yeah.
we play Crystal Palace, and then on next Tuesday in the Champions League, we're in the semifinals against PSG, which is it's been since 2005 since I think we were in the semifinals, and I was just happy that it wasn't against Bayern. We just have not done, we've done really well, and then we'd play Bayern, and Bayern would beat us like I don't know how many times in a row. They have kept been our knockout team, so I was just happy about that.
It's interesting how we were doing so well and still competitive in everything, and then over the course of a week, it was like, all right, well, now that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. Well, we still have the league.
You
um,
have the league, which is
yeah,
important. I mean,
it just
that's a lot of money.
it was just funny how it went, how it felt during the course of that like or 8 day
Mm.
period, whatever it was.
Oh, let me tell you about the heartbreak I had. I think it was not 20, 2006 maybe or I have to go back and look, but there was a week in I think it was 7 or 8 days time. Arsenal and Liverpool played 4 matches in different competitions, and I believe one of them was the Champions League, and it was that one of those matches. It was a second leg, I think at Anfield, and it was like back and forth, back and forth. Arsenal was moving. Liverpool's going to be knocked out. Arsenal's moving on. No, then another goal occurs. Now Liverpool's advancing. Then Arsenal's advancing, and then there was just like this beautiful run that put us in the lead, and not maybe 120 seconds later, we lost the match. Like it was just like 2 goal. Our Liverpool got 2 goals in just like a couple of just a few minutes time, and after the 80th minute, it was just such a well. If you're a Liverpool fan, it was a fantastic run. So
It is the only sport that I can think of that has given me that range of emotions in such short time frames.
I know, and it's just it's. I think that's one of the things that there have been some neuroscientists that have studied people watching football, and it's the the free flow of the sport, the lack of the continuity, so the lack of stoppage time, and um, like the sudden build up that can be rather you can see some build ups and like okay this is gonna happen, but then there's some build ups there's like whoa that happened really fast and a goal is scored. So um, anyway, they were doing studies showing that the inability to predict uh, outcomes and the inability to predict like plays is part of what humans find fascinating about it, because you get these dopamine releases from the surprise. Yeah, it's a fun sport.
I don't know that I have anything else to. It's one of
Have you
those
looked at
things
the?
where. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to ask if you had looked at the bottom of the table, but you should say what you're saying first.
Um, I've glanced. It's just one of those things where it's interesting for so many different reasons. I think for me this season, because one, I didn't expect this. You change from Jurgen Klopp to Arne Slot, and you just kind of expect not to be in good form, or to at least have a lot more of a roller coaster throughout, where instead it's felt very methodical for a change. Um, and then on top of that, I don't, this is kind of just interesting because it's the first league title in the presence of fans in a long time, because the last title was during the COVID era.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just thinking that there is at the beginning of the season, I feel like there could have been like some trepidation, just thinking about when Ferguson left United. I mean, they have been on a downward spiral for the past decade or so.
And they're low in the table at the moment too,
They're
right?
they're
Yeah.
they're 14. They're almost on the bottom quarter.
So I know that what is it? Southampton, somebody else have been mathematically relegated, right?
I think everybody has.
No, I think the last spot is technically still up for grabs.
Yeah. Ipswich, if Ipswich wins 5 games and West Ham wins 0 games,
And Ipswich has to overcome a goal differential.
and a goal and yeah, Ipswich has to overcome a goal differential, which I'm looking to see what it is. It doesn't look possible because they have -38 and West Ham is -18. So
I didn't say it was plausible. Or
right,
yeah.
right. It's they have to score 20 goals in 5 games. I mean, that's 4 goals a match. I mean, you could have an amazing run and do that, but it's not likely. But it's just like it's interesting to think that at this moment, United is only 17 points away from the relegation zone. So they're not going to be there this year. But like when I cannot think of a time that they were ever this close. Like I don't remember them seeing them on the bottom half of the table for any extended period of time, even in the last few years.
I certainly don't remember. I haven't followed as long anyway, but I've followed for quite a while at this point, and I certainly don't remember anything outside the top 8, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can remember when they kept winning the league. Like they won the league more times than City did, and now it's kind of bonkers to think like Tottenham's down there as well. So, and what's good, it reminds me of that meme about David Moyes saying that when he in the 2000s when he went to manage Everton, he made the claim that he was going to make Everton better than United, and he did eventually do that, but that's when he was manager of United.
I remember seeing, yeah.
But currently, Everton is ahead of United on goal differential. They have 2. They're at -6, and United is at -8. -8. Ooh.
It's kind of bonkers that Tottenham is below that with a positive goal differential.
Yeah. That's a 8. That's not something you would expect.
It's very much an outlier. That's what, a combined total of 61 goals they've had, and they're 16th.
They've just, yeah, and I guess they've just allowed too many. But, Tottenham's on the bottom half of the table. United, teams I'm not used to seeing above United would be Everton, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Brighton, Fulham, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Newcastle, and right up there at 4th, going to the Champions League, Nottingham, or a chance to go to the Champions League is Nottingham Forest. But it does, well, I guess a few things. There's a bunch of teams that could, end up, mathematically, Arsenal could fall as low as 7 right now, 7th place. So
there's a lot to play for in that like 3 to 8 range.
This is why a point system is so much more interesting. A point and relegation system is so much more interesting than playoffs.
Yes.
Now, if you want to have your playoffs, that's fine, but multiple leagues with promotions and relegations is so, it can be. I mean, some of the best matches I've seen were just teams fighting to stay in the league. That upset, and I think it was 2012, QPR beating United, and then so that City could clinch the time. QPR was fighting to stay in the league, and Manchester City was playing to win the league. So it's like bottom team trying not to go down the league, and top team trying to mathematically win a title. One of the best matches I've ever seen.
Not technically Premier League news, but Leeds and Burnley both have secured promotion back up to the Premier League.
Oh, good.
I don't know.
That is. You could argue that's Premier League news.
Yeah, well, it would be next year for sure, or next season, not next year.
Yeah.
I don't remember who all is vying for the other spot, but I do know. I think it's Leeds that went down last. I think Leeds and Burnley both went down last season, and they're coming right back up.
Yeah, that's I've seen them yo-yo like that before. I followed Wrexham one season from the documentary.
I still
And
haven't watched it, but I need to.
um
I mean, I'm going to enjoy it just for the sake of enjoying, watching some of the.
I found Ted Lasso. I think I yeah, I don't know. I don't mean to yuck on anyone's yum. Um Speaking of Ted Lasso, there's going to be a fourth season of Ted Lasso.
I've heard.
Did we talk about this?
Not really in depth, because the only thing
Okay.
that I've heard is that there's going to be a season 4. So
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. I think they're in I think they're in production right now.
there was something else I was surprised was coming back also, but I don't remember now which network it was or which service. Oh, it was the Acolyte, the Star Wars one.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Um, it's getting a season 2, and I was kind of surprised. I heard a lot of chatter that it may get canned after the first season, so I think it was that one. Maybe it was the Old Republic that I heard a lot of chatter around. Either way, there's been a lot in the Star Wars universe that has not done well, which I think is not surprising. It's kind of, I think they're trying to tell too many similar stories.
I was going to say, do you think they're saturating the viewership with the? I was just going to say, are you thinking of there? You think they're saturating the viewership, but if they're telling the same stories again and again, and there's not enough to distinguish them or make them interesting in a way that's different from the other one, then yeah, that would be the answer.
Yeah, and it's tough to say. Some of it is drawing from material that already has somewhat of a following. That to people, if you're going to adapt something, people are going to have their preconceived notions, and so if you don't fit their preconceived ideas, then I can see that going wrong as well. I don't know how much of it is that, and how much of it is just tired of similar enough stories, and how much of it is just generally speaking tired of Disney content. As much as I enjoy a lot of the
There's a
stuff
good
that
rant
they've
here.
purchased, yeah, I'm just tired of the same stuff all the time.
Well, initially when you said Star Wars, my thought was Disney is just really hit and miss right now. They're just they're playing darts with ideas, and they'll hit a bullseye from time to time, but they're missing a lot. And I was gonna say the other thought, and I've said it a bunch of times, and I'm gonna keep saying it. It's never gonna happen, or I don't expect it to ever happen. But the Blue Waters with the Quentin Tarantino directed Star Wars movie, I don't know that those two would ever get together. I can't even see them having a dinner together. But you know what? At the same time, money smooths a lot of roads right there.
There's a lot that would be interesting if they would kind of take the guardrails off and just say, you know what, you can play in this universe. Show me what you got.
The Quentin Tarantino directed Star Wars. The Quentin Tarantino directed Star Wars movie would definitely be taking the guardrails off.
Could you imagine like a Tarantino directed Back to the Future-esque movie?
Oh my goodness me! I keep thinking I honestly think the main reason I want the Quentin Tarantino directed Star Wars movie, and I'm always going to say the whole term, is the scene from Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis's character is in was it a pawn shop?
I think so.
And you see him looking at this weapon and that weapon, and when you see him put down the chainsaw to get something else, it's like, what? And and it spoilers, he gets the samurai sword, which is it's like, oh hey, that's where Kill Bill came. Well, they were talking about Kill Bill. Tarantino and Thurman were talking about Kill Bill during production of this movie, but it's just like, I want to see what this guy would do with a lightsaber. Also, the other things that fit is Star Wars came out in the 70s. It was born in the 70s. Quentin Tarantino does a lot of 70s-esque things. Star Wars, there's a Western element to it. Tarantino, he's done a couple of Westerns. He's got some Western themes in his movies. So, yeah, I would love to see his I'd love to see what he would do with a Star Wars movie. Everything like he does interesting in opening movie graphics and things and so forth. And so I just it's a thing. It's a thing I want. I may have one day AI will be uh, there will be AI will be trained enough to give me that, but it's still not going to be the same.
I should really have something to follow that with by now, but I just don't.
Now, let me ask you this: do you because I think you have a more critical eye on this? Do you think that would be a good, or do you think it would just be it wouldn't be somehow it just would not be true to the Star Wars universe?
I think it would be interesting for sure. I I tend to be one of those who thinks more that anything is plausible in the Star Wars universe if you just let people play. Because the expanded universe kind of gave us that to an extent, right? You had all sorts of different types of stories, and authors could write whatever they wanted, and they just, there was kind of an agreement to try to keep it cohesive, but if it, didn't fit in, it didn't matter. It was just an alternative telling. Um, there's nothing inherently not Star Wars other than what we decide you can't do in that realm from a storytelling perspective, because it's meant to be a reflection of it could exist. I think the big thing that just comes to mind typically, the prequel trilogy doesn't feel like Star Wars because it wasn't practical. It was all green screen, and those effects just don't age real well. There's a grittiness to the sets that practical effects also provide that means that you could tell a darker, slummier story if you wanted to, as long as you didn't try to make it look too neat. Whereas I don't think Star Trek lends itself as well to that type of thing because it always felt cleaner, even if you had storylines or episodes that weren't necessarily clean. It didn't feel like it tried to kind of hold a mirror up to this could be an alternate reality type thing. And I'm certainly not saying that they're the only options either, because you could think about stuff like Indiana Jones that always felt far more realistic as far as its
Depiction?
yeah, well, not even depiction as much as it didn't feel too
The
clean.
world of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and I don't know how else I would describe it. It didn't. It felt like it could exist in our practical real world. That's the comparison. And so as long as it feels like it can exist there, then any story's on the table if we can imagine it existing here. And so you could have a slaughterhouse style, like Kill Bill type of Star Wars movie if you wanted to, as long as you had the right type of character and location. Like, would you want to do that on, say, Endor with the Ewoks? No. People aren't going to
No,
believe it.
no.
But if you just picked a random other thing that either was brand new or you could
Maybe even like
potentially even do it in Coruscant if you really wanted
that's
to.
exactly what I thought was Coruscant.
Um, and so I think that's the big thing. The only reason we've never gotten that type of grittiness or that type of story is just because it's been confined to this idea that it had to be approachable for a wide range of audience, like demographics. And obviously, age range being the primary thing.
It suffers the same thing as uh, Pixar movies. And I guess to blur the lines, the example I was going to give where you see them kind of step outside of that was in um, Planes. I know that I've mentioned this before. It's not my own. It's not my original idea, but there's a scene. There's a flashback in Planes where Dusty Crophopper's mentor, a World War II military plane fighter, uh, recalls some an event that occurred during World War II, and I would love to see. I'd love to see that movie. I'd love to see the movie. A World War II animation of anthropomorphic airplanes. That would be fantastic. But it's not going to happen because, you know, there's a
Be kind of
formula,
dark.
there's a brand. It would be dark, but it would be interesting. That's Pixar's blue water. The thing is, like when you're the biggest fish in the red water, you don't really have to swim to the blue water, or when you're the apex predator, rather. There's another thing that I thought of when you were saying that, and it made me think. When you mentioned Indiana Jones, it made me think of a. I was listening to Fake Doctors, Real Friends, and they were talking about what movie. Braff asked Donald Faison what movies he thought the sequel. The two examples would be, or what sequel is better than the original, and the two examples being, Empire Strikes Back is better than Star Wars, and Godfather 2 is better than The Godfather. And I guess I gave away one of my answers, that being I think The Last Crusade is better than the two previous movies. But somebody thought that Temple of Doom was better than Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they just need to get the hell out of here. It doesn't even work because that's a prequel. Anyway, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on. I'm getting into the /BSing/other.
Hold on, I've got to go back to this whole Temple of Doom comment.
No, I don't.
I'm
I don't
processing.
know. I don't know. Oh, which part?
Well, there are elements of Temple of Doom that I would say were better, and not so as a whole. I would say Raiders of the Lost Ark was a better film. So I do think that the statement was misguided. But there's a lot to like out of Temple of Doom. Like what was it?
That was directed by Spielberg, right?
Yeah, and he did all of them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he did all of
the
them.
First,
yeah,
and he did Crystal Skull and whatever the last one was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see the last one?
I did.
What'd you think?
I watched it on. It ran a bit long. It was better than the Crystal Skull. But
Not necessarily saying a lot, but I do agree.
That's true. I didn't. I mean, I don't think I'm compelled to watch it again. I think with The Last Crusade, I'm not sure what it is that I didn't like about it. I don't know if it's just. I don't know.
I think it was just unnecessary. Like I didn't find it that I disliked it, and it just didn't feel. It didn't feel like it was a cohesive element of what had come before to that point either. I do think they did a good job of tying in the different characters and the way the story played out. It was unnecessary.
I like that's why I'm having a hard time, because I do like kind of seeing what happened to Indiana Jones as he got older. What happened, because if I'm not mistaken, it was set in the 1980s, right?
Yes.
And then there was some stuff with the timeline,
and it was very much this is the trajectory he took. We don't want to try to make him younger. We want to embrace the fact that. Much like Harrison Ford, the character has aged, and they wanted to tell that, and I think it did work. It just, overall, I don't think it was as much for me as it was for a slightly older generation to get to kind of feel closure, whereas I was fine with where we ended things with The Last Crusade.
Yeah, I was fine with the end of the Last Crusade was called The Last Crusade, and then, they rode into the sunset. I didn't need anything else.
Right. I'll tell you what I did need was a reappearance of Short Round.
I know. Yes, that would have been fantastic.
That's the only thing that I missed. Like that should have happened. But
I remember thinking that.
Or it should have happened in a way that made it quite clear that, because I think he did have a cameo, didn't he?
I don't remember.
If not, I know that he and Harrison Ford have met up behind the scenes in recent years, and that may be what I'm thinking of. But I don't remember if he had a cameo.
Can remember it wasn't enough,
right? And that's the one thing I did need was more of his character.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I really enjoyed his character in Temple of Doom. But yeah, I think Last Crusade was like. That was it for me. That was, I will even say that I didn't hate the Crystal Skull. I think I rewatched that one once.
I've never rewatched it.
Maybe with my kids.
I did consider whether maybe I needed to rewatch it now because I remember being very disappointed when I watched it. And I tend to find that I will go back and at least watch a movie with some distance between that first watching to see if maybe it was just in the moment. You know, I expected something, go back and judge the movie, whether it's a. But I haven't had a desire to. I think that's the big problem. There are very few movies that have left me with that feeling. I will at least acknowledge that this one exists because it didn't just irritate me at so badly that I would effectively nuke it from Earth if I could.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
But it wasn't good, and I've not been compelled to go back and try to watch it for any redeeming quality.
I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say I know I was a lot kinder to it the second. I feel like I watched it a second time. I'm having difficulty remembering, but I felt like I was a lot. I know I saw it in the cinema, but I felt like I saw it at home at some point, and I think I was a bit kinder to it. Like it wasn't. I didn't hate it so. So.
I would expect that to be like I think the big thing is I don't want to pay for it. You know, I'm sure at this point it's
on Disney Plus, I bet.
But I have other things that are more important to me to stream at the moment. So
fair, that's fair.
And that list just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. It seems.
It will always be longer and longer. So
yeah.
I saw you putting in here the intricacies of 1883 and whether it was depressing or beautiful, etc. And we texted about this a bit.
Yeah, and that's what made me put it in there because I do kind of wonder how it was meant to be. You know, it was depressing as hell. Like if just watch it all the way through, and you're going to feel depressed. But then if you take a moment and think about maybe the story they were trying to portray, it's not nearly as depressing as it seems. And that's what got me thinking about it. Go ahead.
Depressing as hell is not what I would have said at the end of it. Yeah, it was, I guess, spoilers, it was sad at the end. Like, it was certainly sad. And I'll tell you, the what comes at the beginning, so they give backstory information for the characters of 18. They give information of what happens over the course of those 40, or some information over those 40 years between the end of 1883 and the beginning of 1923, and it doesn't get better. So, I don't remember feeling like. I remember being like, yeah, it's a tragedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all right. So, how did I phrase it? I could go back and look, but I just remember in the moment, each episode just felt darker and darker and darker. Like there was never a point where it felt like the story was going to get any happier for the characters involved.
But they kind of gave you that.
Well, not that they didn't have their moments, but there was a steady progression, which I think makes sense for the type of story it is, and trying to draw you on this emotional kind of journey of how it would have felt in the moment. You know, if you were trying to go from point A to point B. Yeah. Like everything about it fits. I just remember not expecting to feel extremely depressing as being overly dramatic, but not expecting to feel like it was a depressing story.
It was heavy. Yeah. See, yeah, it's certainly heavy, but they do give you they let you know what's going to happen at the very beginning, like in the first episode. Like they show
right.
They show a scene. Well, I guess I can say this because it's not a spoiler because this happens in the first episode. But Elsa gets shot with an arrow, and I don't remember at this point. I don't remember what show or even series. Yeah, I don't remember what series. But she talks about at this point, She does narrations for Yellowstone, 1883 and 1923, and I don't remember which one it was, where she says that in her family, like there's war is her family is always destined for war, something to that effect.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I just didn't prepare myself for was the way it would emotionally drag you through the story.
So it got to you more than you were expecting.
I don't know if got to me is also the right word. That's why I was
I guess
trying to
maybe
kind of figure out how it.
affected you more than you were
Well,
expecting.
it did its job, right? It conveyed a setting and it conveyed a feeling, and it effectively did those things in a way that most series don't.
Yeah,
For me,
yeah.
like I don't know the last series I watched where it felt like I was along for the ride the way I felt like I was
Oh,
along for the
okay,
ride with this
okay.
one. That's probably a better way to put it. Because it's not that I didn't enjoy watching it either. And then if you take a step back where you're not feeling like you're along for the ride, so to speak, and you look at the story they're telling and how it's morbid and it is a tragedy, but it is beautiful in its own right, and depending on which character you kind of fixate on and follow, you have a different feeling for what that journey was. And that's the fascinating piece. That's the intricacy piece that I put in the notes. But it just before we even got into that, it was more a matter of just how effective it was at what it was trying to do from a storytelling perspective that I just wasn't prepared for. Because Yellowstone didn't feel that way so far.
No, Yellowstone. I feel like Yellowstone is not. I don't feel Yellowstone is that way at all. Through the whole run, um, I felt so much, and maybe it's because you know, Elsa is an 18-year-old woman, and you can remember being 18 years old, and you can remember you can now in your mid 40s, you can look back and be like, I remember what it was like to have so much of your life ahead of you and to be excited about it and to move forward and to see that snuffed out so early is it's really it is tragic because I mean I don't think you graduate from high school without knowing somebody that you know somebody well enough that it's like it's bothersome to think about that they passed away before they graduated from high school. I can think of there's a person that like we weren't close friends, we were acquaintances. I mean we there was a girl I knew in high school, and um, she was a few years younger than me, and she and her friends and my sister and whomever they after church on Wednesdays and Sundays nights we would go to Sonic or McDonald's, and sometimes she would bum a ride from me, and she died 3 weeks before graduation, and it's been over 20 years and I still remember she's not she's not almost 40 years old with a family and whatever happy or depressing parts of a life that she could have had. And tragically, not long after that, her brother took his own life. And it's just, I mean, that just, I don't know. I think about her every once in a while because she died too young.
I did find it really interesting how they did the dynamic between her and her mother's character as far as the whole eventually seeing it through her eyes type of mentality, like the youthful joy and exuberance and wonder and awe and everything else will eventually be replaced by the grim, harsh realities of the world, and the defiance at accepting it, even though there were moments where there was that development happening in moments, and there was a conscious and willing defiance of accepting that as the state of the world and a return to, or a continued maintenance of, yes, but I have to remind myself of how wonderful the world is type thing, trying to keep that going. And I think that's part of also what I just didn't expect. And again, like, to say it wasn't expected also doesn't mean that I was shocked and awed. It was just, it was different, right? Um, I didn't think about those aspects until I was presented with them in a way that felt very much like, you could say, our every every person has kind of a moment over the course of their maturity and development where they can either become more pessimistic or become more hopeful about how the next day will go. And it's not saying that it's set in stone either, but playing that out as a defiant choice, I really liked, and I thought it was a very, very interesting way to give both her and her mother's characters a whole nother level of depth and interaction that just wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Yeah. I don't know how to follow that.
I would say the one other thing that caught me kind of by surprise, but I also not, was the relationship between Elsa and Sam.
I liked that better than Elsa and Innes. Not that I felt like Elsa and Innes was really good, but I like Sam so much more.
Yeah, I do too, and I think it's partially because, especially now, we, in the moment, it probably could have happened, maybe not, but especially through the lens of today, we look at how long we have fought those just inequalities between groups of people, and it was nice to see it, that what I was going to the moment before with the whole willful defiance, that being I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and if I love this person, I love this person type thing. It was nice to see it play out. But I don't know how much of it was nice to see play out because of current strife as opposed to the oppression of Native American peoples in general. I'm not so sure that I think that might have been an element of, let's put this in as a reflection of today's culture more so than.
I think that's a good take.
But it worked really well.
Well, yeah, it does. It's like, here's my rationalization of that, and there's another thing I'll rationalize with it, and that is like this. There's because it happens again in 1923, but there's a whole sort of concept of, they're young people, they're in love. I think the way they put it in 1923, I think it was Harrison Ford's character, Jacob Dutton. He's the younger brother of James. And he's like, when you got some young people, it's like, don't do the math on the wedding date and the birth of your first grandchild, is something to that effect. And there was that same sort of attitude that James took with Elsa and her relationship with Ennis. There was just a sort of, kids are going to do what kids are going to do, or whatever. Young love is going to do what young love is going to do. And I feel like that, that barely, I felt like more people, I guess my preconceived notion is that more people would have the Clara Dutton approach to that, because she was very straight-laced, puritanical, and I would expect the majority of the population was that way, but somebody had to be the progressive person. Yeah. And I guess the story just happened, they wrote the story about that one progressive person because they were also friendly to native, indigenous people. He was, his James Dutton and James, why am I blanking on his wife's name? Is it Margaret?
I don't remember, and that's why I kept saying Elsa and her mother, because every time I would look at her, I would just think Faith Hill. That was the one. Yeah,
me too. Like I don't want to say Faith Hill because that's not Faith. Faith Hill is portraying somebody. She wasn't that person.
I do think it was Margaret.
Is it Margaret? Anyway, Ms. Dutton. Anyway, they were from James Dutton fought for the Confederacy, and maybe that's what maybe that could be the hey, I'm writing this character and his experience in the American Civil War is what changed his position, because that did not happen. So I don't know. So there had to, it wasn't it wasn't nobody that wasn't this way. So we just happened to get the story. They wrote the story based on the person who is this way. But that's kind of how stories are written. You pick that diamond in the rough, and you want to tell their story because, one, it's fiction and you can, and two, that's what's interesting. So,
Right.
But I will say the thing that really bothers me the most about the Yellowstone and its origin stories series is the way the romances are written. I told you in the last recording in 1923, I was just some of the stories that went along and the scenes that went along with a couple of different romances, like, just get on with it. It's just like, I don't need to see this. And so I just started thinking about it and reading about it, and I think it's that these relationships are male gaze dominant, and women are treated as powerful and emotional, and then they rely on a man to sort of balance them, or I don't know, maybe balance their trauma. I'm trying to think it through a little bit as I say it, but you can see this with Beth and Rip. Rip has unwavering loyalty for Beth and her volatility, and they sort of romanticize that. It's just like, if Beth has Rip, then she can have she has unconditional love. She can experience love. Whereas if he wasn't there, she would just be a real difficult person, real terrible person. And maybe your opinion of her is that she's a terrible person, regardless. Same thing with Elsa. Not same thing with Elsa. She was more like, I guess she's different because she was gaining autonomy, and showing that through her her relationships. Like, there was really no stopping her being with Ennis, and there's no stopping her being with Sam. So,
well, this is interesting. One, because I haven't finished all of Yellowstone, and I haven't seen 1923 yet. So I'm drawing from a smaller pool of examples, but I didn't necessarily get this feeling so far. Now, I do agree, Beth and Rip, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's
and,
neat.
And if you look at the hands and the relationships and everything else, like, a lot of those are definitely written more from a dominant male type of. I guess that's not quite the right way to put it. Using your words, the male gaze kind of centric view fits, I think, those. But, like, I think about Casey and Monica, or John and the governor, and those feel more like proper, or not necessarily proper. They feel more like
healthy. They feel healthier.
Well, they feel more like a realistic dynamic.
Okay.
Because I don't know if I would say they're healthy necessarily either. But certainly not unhealthy in the same way that you look at some of the other relationships.
Yeah, because I was thinking about Monica and Casey, and I was just like, there's not really anything for me to, like, criticize there. It's like you said, more realistic.
And I did think that I'm just going to say Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, because I keep wanting to say it. But I think their characters, so James and Miss
Margaret.
Dutton, since we don't know for sure confirmation on her her character name, I think their relationship also worked well.
I agree.
And so that's why, like, I wonder how much of that kind of development of that view might be specific to the later stuff more so than up to what I've seen. Because I don't really know how I feel about Beth and Rip's relationship yet. I don't know for sure how I feel about Beth yet. There were times when I feel like her character is horrible, and then there are times where I feel like it's completely justifiable, and times where I empathize with her character and have sympathy, and times when it's like that's the worst decision you can make. There's that again, somewhat realistic character arc development that you could say is at play, where no one person's ever going to always be positive, or I would expect no one person to always be positive. You always tend to form uh, an opinion over the course of their actions and reactions and everything else if you take the time to form an opinion, right? Like if it's someone that you actually understand or know, then there's going to be something that you dislike, something you like, et cetera, et cetera. And so the biggest thing with the relationship between her and Rip is just that neither of the individuals are healthy from a just emotional, mental standpoint. And it plays out in their relationship as a counterbalance to that, I think. And it may just be that I view it differently as well. But I don't necessarily view it as it's an attempt to temper Beth's character as much as it is a reflection of how damaged both are, and they're finding something in each other.
Hey,
Hey,
that was weird.
very much so.
Yeah, I lost audio for a few minutes, and then the FaceTime call dropped. But the last thing we were talking about was we were still talking. You were talking about Beth and Rip, and
yeah, and I don't know, of course, where it cut off for you, but what I eventually kind of got to was I'm not so sure how I feel about their relationship at the moment either, and I don't view it as much as a Rip balancing and making Beth more tolerable or more humane or anything. I look at the relationship as two very damaged individuals finding something in each other.
I think that's spot on. That is the case, but there's some aspect of she's chaotic and he is stable.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about, I mean, not necessarily any of the specific relationships that you've got portrayed, but like you could pick a relationship and make that type of thought as well.
Well,
The stereotype
yeah,
would be opposites attract.
yeah, that's true.
Um,
Well, I was just gonna say, I think you said it already, and I'm gonna keep glomming onto what you said. And like Casey and Monica have a very realistic relationship. Like I can't really think that there's not a part of it as far as like their relationship dynamic that is unrealistic, because when they are having trouble, when they do have trouble in their relationship, it's founded. Like those are things that I can't imagine any reasonable woman wouldn't have this issue and have these sort of like responses to. Like it just seems like a really realistic,
well, so as you were saying it, my
Yeah.
initial thought was just that maybe you haven't known the same type of chaotic people, right? Like, because I can think of a
That's
couple
fair.
of relationships of people that I've known that like, Rip and Beth look pretty realistic. Maybe not to the same extent, like it's at quite the same extremes, but I, I, I have seen relationships that remind me of theirs, and so I do wonder if maybe that's not as widespread as the other style relationships, and that's what makes it feel that way.
I think well, here's I guess the source of, maybe not the source of my gripe is that Sheridan writes really good women in a couple of his movies. Like in Wind River, Elizabeth Olsen plays an FBI agent, and last night I watched Sicario, and Emily Blunt also plays an FBI agent, and they were fantastic. Like I love the way he wrote those characters. They were competent, idealistic, morally grounded. They had to, they went through the process. They went through what they wanted to show as part of the story, and they were, I think they were good, strong female lead characters, and they weren't sexualized. Uh, they were. It was not. I enjoyed watching their portrayal. So that's what I'm sort of comparing to, comparing these other female characters to. And I guess I got a little out of order here, but I was going to ask you, have you seen Rip and Beth's backstory yet? I can't remember where they start showing flashbacks for their backstory.
Part of it. So I don't, because I don't know how much of the backstory they share.
I think
like
a
they,
lot.
they did share. They shared where she essentially seduced him and was pregnant, had an abortion and a hysterectomy, and never shared that information.
Okay, so you could say that. So with that information, I can go ahead and say, like, I think that she's justified in her anger and her bitterness in life.
Yes, and that goes back to, depending on kind of where it cut off, when we had the issue earlier. I still don't know what I think of Beth overall. I sometimes I like the character, sometimes I hate the character, sometimes I very much empathize with the character, and I think that that's intentional from a development standpoint.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you create the character the way you do? But as a result of that, I don't really know how I view her relationships with other characters yet either, because I haven't made up my mind on her character. And so it's interesting, it's, but I do think that it's very much a solid representation of what you would expect someone who dealt with that type of trauma in general to be. And it works in a way that I'm not sure Jamie's character works, to contrast. Like and maybe I will feel differently about Jamie's character over time, but like I don't feel like they've given enough of a reason for me to view him with the general sense of disdain that I necessarily view him with, because the only reason I view him that way is based on everybody else viewing him that way. Like his character just isn't as well developed to me for me to have formed a feeling about his character, whereas Beth's character is well developed at this point, and I don't know how I feel. And it's just kind of an odd contrast.
Yeah, I can see. His character's further developed, so I can't remember. If season 3 has the kayakers.
You're not talking about the lady with the press, are you?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So that storyline has played through up to that was that season 3 or was it season 2?
Could have been 2. Because it could have been, because they were. I can't. It's blurred for me.
Yeah, I don't remember for what order, because I haven't paid attention to what season or episode I'm in necessarily. I just knew that when I finished season 2, I had to watch 1883 and then pick back up. So, but yeah, he has killed the reporter, and had that cover up happen some time ago, as I've watched. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's kind of what I didn't want to spoil that.
Yeah, and so like I don't like his character, but I don't necessarily hate his character either.
Yeah. It's like whereas Beth, it's like you feel a little bit more strongly for her, and just thinking about if any woman went through what she has gone through, and it's like, oh, I kind of get why you hate this person,
right? And
it's like her hatred, her contempt for Jamie is fairly well justified.
Right. And so I don't remember if it was I think it was an episode back, but there was the confrontation where Beth makes the statement about when however it was, where you're blaming someone for what happened to them, or I don't remember the wording, but it was essentially Jamie claiming that he wasn't at fault because he did what she asked, is a sense of deflection, or a way to deflect and a way to make yourself feel better about something, instead of the whole, but he should have thought about the ramifications, or
yeah,
just
that
because
was
she asked doesn't mean that that's what you do. It's
right.
There's an element there of this explains that hatred really, really well, But on the flip side of it, they were young in that episode. And
Yeah, they were teenagers. He was.
as a boy, I certainly wouldn't have thought about it from that perspective either. I would have thought about it from, this is what you asked me to do. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have thought about the long-term ramifications in it either. So I think that there is a solid element of both characters being developed in a way that makes sense. And I think I just don't like Jamie because he's always trying to look for... He's the epitome of a stereotypical lawyer.
Yeah, he's the slimy lawyer.
Yeah, and I just don't like that type of person. So
he's and I guess now that you've seen him, he's been elected.
Yes. Well, no, he was appointed interim.
Appointed. So now he's a slimy politician.
Right. Because the most recent piece is where he sat down with the development group. They floated, the woman who is negotiating floated numbers and claims to have seen, the desire in Jamie's eyes, and Josh Holloway's character. I never remember. I always just remember his name, just like some of the others. But yeah, he. But like his comment as they leave is like, I don't think he's the one you've got to win over, type thing. And that's kind of the last bit that I remember of what's been. I think that was in the most recent episode that I watched, where, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But they're definitely setting the seeds for. I'm going to continue to dislike the trajectory of Jamie's character. Like there's no, I don't see any kind of redemption arc coming. I think they're continuing to just take it down the path of he's just kind of out for himself under the guise of helping the family. That's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like you could certainly make plenty of arguments that Kevin Costner's character is horrible, that John Dutton is pulling strings in a way that he shouldn't in the name of family as well. But there's a difference in empathy toward his character based on everything else, which again makes sense. That's more his story than it is Jamie's story.
I think that's a great comparison. But why do we not like Jamie, and why do we have some amount of I guess I'm asking this rhetorically, but the reason we are okay with or we don't judge John Dutton too cruelly, but we do Jamie, is because Jamie's one of the bad guys. We know he's a bad guy because he doesn't want to protect the land. He doesn't want he wants to take the land and benefit just a few people, whereas John Dutton wants to preserve the land. And
I think they do a really good job of showcasing how the acquisition of power isn't always straightforward. Mm-hmm. And so the desire and acquisition of power looks like Jamie. Whether it's, really effective or not still is to be seen. But the balance of power that is portrayed by or shown that for John, his character to have, isn't rooted in the acquisition of power. It's rooted in the protection of nature.
Yeah, I think one of the things it made me think of was at the end of if you have a benevolent dictator, at the end of the day, you still have a dictator. Right. A similar sentiment.
Yeah, we are far more forgiving of. You could even we'll just use the benevolent dictator statement. You'd be far more forgiving of a benevolent dictator's actions and policies than you would a malicious one.
Right.
I haven't decided which Dutton I like best.
Well, when you finish it, I think that I have a guess.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how I feel, and I'm putting that across all of the shows, not just Yellowstone, or not, if I were to take all of the Duttons that I have been exposed to and kind of think about their characters, I'm not sure who I like best. And I won't have a definitive answer until I finish all of them. So
yeah, I could guess who you would end up on, but I think it'd be similar. I think you'll have a similar answer to me.
I was tempted to try to binge a little bit further. I
Yeah.
just haven't. I'm trying to balance, getting through it quickly with also actually giving time to all
Take
the
your
other
time to enjoy
things.
it. No, take your time to enjoy it. Like watch it. It's watching it. It's like I don't want to watch an entire season in a shortest amount of time possible. But I do want to, like when I get into a show like that, I do want to move quickly, but not as quickly as possible.
The only show I've ever binged in that type of manner, where I wanted to get through it really quickly like that, was the first season of 24.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
I can
I think
understand
it's just
why.
because of the premise. It
Yeah,
felt like the type of show that you could.
the show that I did that with was a show called Slasher. It was a it was similar to American Horror Story, but it came out of Canada, and there wasn't anything supernatural about it. It was just a slasher TV show.
It could be fun.
Yeah, it was on. There were 3 seasons of it. It was on Netflix, and it's an anthology, and it was fun. It was. I think I might have watched season 2 before I saw season 1, but it didn't matter. But it was a good show.
I will say I've gone down not really a rabbit hole. I recognized that I was missing some Kevin Costner films from my library and have plugged a few holes recently. So I have Waterworld,
Waterworld? Okay.
Wyatt Earp, and The Bodyguard have all been added.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen Wyatt Earp or The Bodyguard. I mean, I know there's. I kind of would like to go back. Now I have a place where I can easily go see them. But, yeah, that's some. Those are some good ones. I really want to see. I would be interested in seeing Wyatt Earp because I have a new. I look at Tombstone with a new lens. I look at the whole Wyatt Earp story with a new lens after watching a documentary about Wyatt Earp. A couple things being that Wyatt Earp outlived almost all the people in his life, and he went to Hollywood, and there was no real fact checking that anyone could do.
Yeah. I've heard, so I haven't watched any documentary, but I have heard those points come out, and I find it hilarious on one hand, but at the same time, like there's bound to be a grain of truth, at least in some of
Oh yeah,
the legend as well. So
there's it's not I don't think it's a fabrication, but it's like well, one of the things that's interesting, the movie Wolf of Wall Street with Leo,
right,
that was all made up. Like the guy who it was about wrote the story and sold it to Hollywood. It's not factual.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
I'm sure he did, something with the stock market, but
Yeah.
It reminds me of the guy. I've said this before. There were German U-boats in the North Atlantic, and that's about it.
There's so many movies you could say that about, though.
Yes.
I don't know if they have anything else at the moment on,
Yeah,
Yellowstone and its other shows, but I think I guess I do have one other thing. I wasn't sure when season 2 ended, how they were going to progress as far as Tate's storyline. So I've been happy with the way they've taken it so far.
Remind me what happened to Tate at the
So
end
at the end of season 2 is when he was abducted by the Beck brothers and given to the fascist white nationalist group, and then recovered. And so, like that, they could have gone a lot darker with that storyline and the trauma, and maybe that's still to come. But I've liked how they haven't glossed over it at this point, but they've shown how the land can help. Being out in the land can help with emotional trauma, and part of that being a good explainer for why John is so strongly attached to the land. So it works. Obviously, there could still be more to come out of it, but I've liked how they've handled that as that's a that's a dark ass story like you could go down if you really wanted to.
It really is.
And same thing with the Native American oppression. I think up to this point, they've done a really good job of walking the line on shedding light on these things without taking it too dark. That's not the best way to say it, but I think you get what I meant from an entertainment perspective. Like I don't want to. I think the dark aspects of it should be portrayed. I don't think this is the right setting for it.
Yeah, they saved the darkest things for 1923.
Okay,
they really do.
I mean, it would fit from a time perspective too. You know,
it does. It really does.
So it'll be interesting to see when I get that far.
See, so I will say this, because I thought about this while I was watching 1923. One of the most interesting things about 1923 is to do a mental compare and contrast of what you're seeing in that show with A River Runs Through It, because if I'm recalling correctly, yeah, it's the 20s, and they're in Missoula, Montana. So it is Montana. It's a very different portrayal of like what Montana was in the 1920s. There's things that are similar and there's things that are different. So I just had that mental compare and contrast running through my head the whole time I was watching 1923.
I don't know when I last had to have been when it came out. I don't remember enough of A River Runs Through It to do that contrast.
Oh, interesting. I rewatched it not too long ago because I watched it when I was in my late teens, and I loved it. And again, it was because there was a focus on nature and how nature is restorative, and so I had rewatched it with Becca, and that's tough because she's so critical of things that are old and haven't aged well, and she just can't get she can't get behind it, and so consequently, it's as difficult as it is for me to be like, oh, here's this thing that I really enjoyed, and now I'm seeing its flaws. It's like, it's important to see those flaws, because if you can see them in things that you saw in your past and didn't realize because you were too young, and the world wasn't, we weren't exposed to those things, or the world was glossing over those things and sugarcoating those things, it is good to go back and see those flaws and be like, and now it helps you to recognize them in current times. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.